Good morning. My name's Terry. I'm delighted to be back. I was here sometime before. But you know, you get to a certain age where you don't remember and it really doesn't matter. It's nice because you meet new friends every day. In your own family, you know. No, I am delighted to be back, especially because this is the service where I get to preach for an hour. Is Dick still here? I need to make a confession. I need to begin by saying I am sad this morning. I live in Seattle, but I am from Michigan. The University of Michigan. You don't need to boo too loudly, but they lost yesterday. Both of my teams lost. One of them lost to Notre Dame, University of Washington. So there's going to be a lot of hellfire in today's sermon, is all I'm telling you. Gillian Lynn. Now, you might not know the name Gillian Lynn, but trust me, you know Gillian Lynn. She was born in the 20s, and so in the 30s, she was the age of the children who took First Communion today, and a grade school student. And she was, back then they were called difficult children. You know what I mean, don't you? Problem children. And the reason we called them that is because we didn't have the labels that we have today. It's easier now, isn't it? They're just ADD or ADHD or whatever we want to call them. But back then, you could just say, that's a difficult kid, right? Or that's somebody who will go to University of Michigan. Those are the only two labels that were available. Well, she was the kind of kid where the teacher didn't know what to do. You know the kind of kid I'm talking about. They're everywhere, and you don't know how to control them, and they don't seem to be paying attention, and the parents are pulling their hair out thinking, Lord have mercy, what have we done wrong in our parenting? You know, and people are pointing and saying, what have you done wrong with your parenting? And so in the last resort, they went to the school counselor just to see if they could get some help. And Jillian promised her mom and dad, I'll behave, and so I'll sit on my hands, I'll be on my best behavior, I will be polite. And she tried. And the counselor said to the parents, may I talk to you privately? And they said yes, and so he took them out of the office. And as he was leaving the office, he turned on a radio that he had there, and he turned it on to classical music. And then he shut the door. And he said to the parents, I want to show you something. They turned her on, they looked back through the window, and Jillian was no longer sitting on her hands. Guess what she was doing? Twirling around the office. Wonderful, elegant dance. Ear to ear with unmitigated ecstasy. And the counselor said to the parents, you see, your daughter is not troubled. Your daughter is a dancer. Inside of every one of us is a dancer. But we have been told for one reason or other that there is a label that takes precedence over the dancer, and so we leave the dancer inside. That story could have turned out very differently. That counselor could have labeled Jillian, could have medicated her, and that's the end of it. But instead, he said, no, there's someone inside of you that can be released to shine. And so that story did turn out differently, and she excelled at dance, and she went to Royal Ballet where she excelled, and then she became a choreographer, and then she met a young upstart. What was his name? Oh, Andrew Lloyd Webber. And she choreographed all of his plays. Do you know Phantom of the Opera? Then you know Gillian Lynn. Do you know Cats? then you know Jillian Lynn. Why? Because someone gave her the permission to shine, to dance. But oh no, we live in a world where it's easier to have labels. Is that not true? Are labels not easier? We like labels. Why? Because we feel like we're in control of something. We like to name things, and once we think we've named it, we've controlled it. And so what that does is it gives us blinders, it gives us insulation, it gives us armor. This is a true story. Like the one pastor said, I'm not preaching now, this part's true. In the Civil War, psychologists, this is true, psychologists named 2 brand new mental illnesses. And very long names, I can't remember what they are now, but 2 new mental illnesses, and they were specific to slaves who were considered, for the most part, mentally ill. Would you like to know the symptoms of the mental illness that they claimed? The symptoms were a desire to escape. My point being is we see what we want to see. And once we label something, we dismiss it. And once we label it in ourselves, we dismiss it. There's no light to shine within me, we dismiss it. Because I am, and put your label on it. So the farmer got a new dog. This was a hunting dog, and so he took his dog out because he wanted to test the dog out. So it was duck hunting season, so he shoots a duck, and the dog walks across the lake to get the duck. And the farmer's going, whoa, I'm a lucky man, or I cannot see one of the 2. That's another good thing with age, too. We can't see, and sometimes it's, when we're looking at the person, it's just as good. Because then we can't remember that we couldn't see. See, I have an 11-year-old son, and in my mid-50s, that's unusual. And the good news is when he's in high school, I will have lost my memory. So he shoots another duck, and the dog walks across the lake, and he's saying, this is a miracle, I'm a lucky man. So he goes to get his neighbor. He wants to shine the light. He goes to get the neighbor, and he brings the neighbor, and he says, you got to see this. This is a miracle dog. Watch this. See if you notice anything unique about my dog. He shoots the duck. The dog walks across the lake, picks up the duck, walks back, and he says to the neighbor, what do you think? The neighbor goes, didn't notice anything. The farmer says, you out of your head. Watch this. Shoots another duck. The dog walks across the lake, and the neighbor says, I see it now. I don't think your dog can swim.